What's going on, guys? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be testing out Google Stadia and Project xCloud running on the Raspberry Pi 4. And to tell you the truth, I've done a lot of testing so far. It's actually working really well, but there's a catch. I'm running Android, or Lineage OS, on the Pi 4. Now, I initially set this up for GeForce Now, but unfortunately, I cannot get GeForce Now to install with this version of Android for some unknown reason. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I've tried side-loading it, and it's not listed in the Google Play Store with this version of Lineage OS that I have running on my Raspberry Pi 4. So I'm going to open up IDA64 here. As you can see, we have the Raspberry Pi 4. I'm actually using the 8GB model, but the 2 or 4 will work. And I have the CPU overclocked to 2.1 GHz just to try to get a little more out of this. Now, in order for this to work properly, you will need to be plugged in with Ethernet. I've tried this using the built-in Wi-Fi with the Raspberry Pi 4, but unfortunately it's just really stuttery. So Ethernet is definitely the way to go, but even then you will have some hit or miss moments with Stadia. But with Project xCloud, I've actually had a pretty good experience. I've tested a few games here. I haven't had any issues with it. We are running at 720p 60, so it's not going to look the best. But using cloud gaming services on the Raspberry Pi 4 with Android is totally possible. So let's go ahead and move right into it. I'm going to connect this to my game capture so we can get a better look. Alright, so here we are. I'm connected to my game capture. I do have a controller plugged in. This is the FlyDigi Apex. It uses a 2.4 GHz dongle, but I've also tested an Xbox One controller connected over USB and Bluetooth. That also works, but I still have to have my keyboard and mouse plugged in here to navigate a lot of these interfaces. For some reason, the controller isn't working in the Stadia interface. There's one game that I've actually had a lot of issues with, and that's PUBG. I'm not exactly sure why, but I have tested Serious Sam and Grid. Both of them work a lot better than PUBG, but we're going to go with Grid first, and then we'll move over to PUBG and I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll go to All Games, and I do have Stadia Pro. I just don't have anything else except for the free games here. I haven't bought anything with Stadia yet. We'll start up Grid, and when you first start this up, it's going to prompt you, do you want to play on this device? Just click yes. I'll exit the other game, and we're loading up Grid here. Now, this version of Android that we're running on the Raspberry Pi 4 here uses the Google Swift shader instead of OpenGL, and I'm actually pretty surprised that Stadia or even xCloud runs on it. I gotta skip this intro here. We'll get right into some gameplay. So I've actually tested this game a few times, and as you can see, it's running really smooth. I'm not noticing much controller lag, as much as you would using Stadia on a PC or a high-end Android phone, I guess. I am using a wireless controller. I'm not sure if a wired controller would be any better, but it is running great. We're running at full speed here, even though we're at 720p 60. And every once in a while, you'll notice a hiccup here and there, but overall, when this is working good on the Raspberry Pi 4, it works great. As you can see, we're able to play Grid here. But I have run into some issues, specifically with Destiny 2 and PUBG. Not exactly sure why it's doing it with those two games and not Grid and Serious Sam, but I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about in just a second. We'll get a little more gameplay out of the way here. Alright, so moving back to Stadia, we're going to start PUBG here, and I'm not going to make you wait through the loading. I'm going to skip right into it. Okay, so it's looking great. It's working fine. My controller's working, but then we get into the pixelation, and my controller kind of freezes up with this one here. This and Destiny 2. And it doesn't happen every time or all the time. Just every once in a while, you'll notice it kind of getting pixelated, and your controller will kind of skip ahead. You'll be wanting to control your character, and it kind of takes those inputs and puts them into the future. It's a little weird. We'll see if we can make it happen again out here. Everything's working good. Looks pretty decent, and there we go. We got that slowdown and the pixelation coming. I really believe it has to do with the network chip in the Raspberry Pi 4 in this version of Android. I just think we're losing connection here over Ethernet or even Wi-Fi. In order to exit, we'll just drag up from the bottom here, tap the back button twice, and we'll exit the game. Now I think it's time to move over to Project xCloud. I've actually had much better luck with xCloud on the Raspberry Pi 4 with this version of Android over Stadia. I have had a few games in Stadia work really well, but then I'll run into some that look like PUBG. So here we are with xCloud, and I'm not streaming from my local Xbox. This is using their xCloud servers. We're going to go with Tekken 7 first, and then we'll try out a racing game like Dirt Rally 2.0.
Welcome to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7.
One thing I have noticed about xCloud over Stadia is the picture isn't as crystal clear as it is with Stadia on the Raspberry Pi 4, but still, it's a lot more playable with all the games that I've tested.
Time to die. I hope your affairs are in order.
Round 1. Fight.
So yeah, gameplay is really smooth, and as for latency, like I mentioned with Stadia, I'm really not noticing any more than I would with a high-end Android phone or streaming this from something else. And with every one of these cloud services on pretty much any device, there will be latency, whether you're using Ethernet, Wi-Fi, a Bluetooth controller, or connected over USB.
Perfect. You win.
We can exit the same way. We'll stop this game, and we're going to start up Dirt Rally 2.0. And so it obviously doesn't look the best because we're at 720p, but overall, I mean, I think Project xCloud does work really well on the Raspberry Pi 4, and there are a lot of games that you can play in Stadia on this unit also. Would I go out and buy a Pi 4 specifically for cloud gaming? Absolutely not. But if you already have one and you want to test this out, I mean, it's pretty easy to do. I do have a full tutorial on installing Android and Google Play, and that's really all you need to get this up and running. Keep in mind, this is going to work a lot better over Ethernet. You can test Wi-Fi if you really want to, but I didn't have a good experience with it with either Stadia or xCloud, so I resorted to strictly using Ethernet. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you're interested in setting this up, links for everything are in the description. Just give you a quick look here. We're still on the Raspberry Pi 4. I'm using the 8GB model, but the 2 or the 4 will also work. And I did overclock my CPU to 2.1 GHz just to try to get a little more out of it. Definitely seemed to help out from the original 1.5. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.